Yirmiyahu was a prophet, was a good chaver of mine. Never understood a single word he said, but we helped him to drink his yain. And we always have some mighty fine yain. Singing simchat le'olam, kol ha'yeladim now. Simchat to the dagim in the deep blue sea. Simchat to you and me. Yeah.
Welcome to the Haftarah Plethora video podcast, where we might not bring joy to the world, but we do talk about prophets like Jeremiah, Isaiah, and Ezekiel, whom you might call the big three of prophets. I'm Larry Herman, drinking some very fine wine, and today eating a sandwich and talking Haftarah with my good chaver, the king of cannellation, Rick Muller. How are you, Rick?
Eating a sandwich? Didn't you have your supper? What's the deal?
Well, I figure that this week's Haftarah is a bit like a sandwich.
Okay, I'll bite.
Very funny. Get your own sandwich. Well, you see, this week we're back to reading the regularly scheduled Haftarah after two special weeks. The Haftarahs for Shabbat Shekalim and Shabbat Zachor. And the next 2 weeks are two more special Haftarahs for Shabbat Parah and Shabbat HaChodesh. So this week is like a thick piece of regular Haftarah between 4 slices of special Haftarah bread.
Very clever, but you missed something.
What's that?
The Haftarah for the next 2 special Shabbatot also come from Ezekiel.
See? I told you that Ezekiel was one of the big three.
Big 3, huh? I can see that. About half of the Haftarah readings come from those three prophets, and they're usually pretty powerful. And don't I remember you quoting Robert Alter about what a strange bird Ezekiel was?
Good memory. When we were discussing the Haftarah for Vayigash, I quoted Alter as writing, Ezekiel is surely the strangest of all prophets. And it's true that many of the Haftarahs from Ezekiel contain some of the most fanciful, imaginative, and provocative imagery and descriptions in the Bible.
So this week's Haftarah must be a doozy, right?
Rick, for my money, this week's Haftarah is a dozer.
You mean like a bulldozer, right?
No, I mean like a soporific. If you fell asleep during the Torah reading, then this Haftarah is not likely to wake you up.
Hey, it's got great trope. No one sleeps during my pazers.
That's true, and we'll get back to your pazers in a minute. But from the content perspective, this Haftarah is very uninteresting, boring, redundant, humdrum, and tedious. Besides that, I don't like it.
Well, it's a good thing that you're not opinionated.
Of course I'm opinionated, Rick. Where have you been the past year?
I was kidding.
I know, but I'm not kidding when I say that about the only interesting thing about this text, not the trope, is the context. This is the 4th chapter of a very long discourse where Ezekiel is talking to some guy, one of the emissaries from God, about what's going to happen when the people return from exile. In this one, he describes the altar, not Robert, just as in the Parsha. I suppose that it would be an interesting Haftarah if you were a carpenter.
And had a tape measure in cubits.
Yeah, good luck finding one of those at Home Depot. Just one more thing before I let you trope away. The first line of the Haftarah reads, Ata ben Adam, haged et Beit Yisrael et habayit, which Alter translates as, you, man, tell the house of Israel about the house. The way I read the text, this line is actually being voiced by the messenger to Ezekiel, but as is often true in biblical stories, where one of our heroes is being instructed by messengers or angels, that character morphs from human form to God. This is one of those cases. But I love the way that the voice calls Ezekiel Ben Adam, translated in Eitz Chaim as, O mortal, or as I would have translated, hey man.
Hey man, time for my trope talk.
Okay, take it away, O king of cantillation.
Okay, well, the thing that just jumps out at you is that there's 4 pazers in verse 11. That never happens, ever. So there's something going on there. And it's just there. And then there's a fifth one in verse 19 that we'll get to. But the fireworks in verse 11, it's just unheard of. So and there's not a lot of explanation that I can come up with. You ready to do that now, or do we do the divisions first?
Sandwich.
Yes, I see that. So
well, you want to start to read right away?
yeah, tell the divisions, and then I want to get into the pazers here.
So what I think we should do is divide it into three parts. Verses 10 to 12 are the introduction, where the messenger is talking to Ezekiel, and he mentions the temple, and we'll talk about especially verse 11 in there, but there are no specifics. And then we get to verses 13 through 17, where we actually have the specifications for the altar, the engineering or carpentry part of our parsha. And then we conclude with the longest part, verses 18 through 27, where Ezekiel describes, or the messenger is describing, not clear who to me at least, the specifications for initiating the use of the altar during the 7 days of the initiation. So again, we'll start with verses 10 through 12, and then 13 through 17, and 18 through 27. So Rick, you want to tell people the page number of the Eitz Chaim and then do the bracha?
Yes. So on the bottom of 519 is the commentary about this verse, and about 6-7 lines up from the bottom. I like the idea that if the people are engaged in the reading of the plan, then it's considered as if they were in fact occupied with the building of the plans. Like, you have to think about something in order to get motivated. You have to be aware of what you want to do, and then you try to do it. And then towards the bottom, the altar and the table, Rabbis Yochanan and Elazar are quoted there. So read that. And then on the top of 520, there's more of that, how the person's table at home is like a substitute for the altar and the temple that we can't have anymore. And then I like the end quote from Rabbi Shimon, that he taught that when three people sit at a table and discuss Torah, whether it's over a sandwich or not, it's as if they ate from the table of the presence of God. So I like that on top there. So
And
yes, it's on 520. Yeah.
I see. And how about for that verse number 11, before you say the bracha and get into the chanting?
Okay.
I mean, it's a doozy, it seems to me.
Yeah.
You've got all these special trope. You talked about the 4 pazers.
Yeah. And the word surat, the word plan, happens 4 times. So again, repetition is there for a reason, unless there was something wrong with the scribe.
Well, Alter thinks that there's a mistake, because if you look at the text, you'll see that there are 3 of those words in brackets.
Yes.
Those are scribal mistakes, right, Rick?
Yes. In the Eitz Chaim, they print it smaller, but it's printed in the original scroll. The first one in verse 11 is tsuro to, it looks like, without the yud. So they say, no, you should really pronounce it like there's a yud there. It should be tsuro tav. And the next one in the actual scroll, it looks like tsuro tai with a yud on the end. But no, there they say there should be a vav on the end. So you're supposed to read it as tsuro tav. And then the next one, it looks like Torah to without the yud, but you should read it with the yud, Torah tav. So there's something going on there. And then hoda'otam, show them, happens at the end. The way they translate it, it's backwards, but it's the plan for the house and the layout and the exits and the entrances and the laws and the instructions. Show them. So it's weird. It's a weird order of things.
And Alter actually thinks that there's an entire line inside this verse which a scribe repeated unintentionally.
Yeah.
So there's all, as we've said, this repetitive redundancy again and again. My theory is that the scribe was drunk.
Possibility.
All right. What about so that we start the Haftarah on which page?
Yes, 520.
And the bracha.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam Asher kichanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah.
Amen.
Ata ben Adam, aged et Beit Yisrael et habayit veyikalmu me'avonotehem umadedu et tochnit. Kamatz katan there. Ve'im nichlamu mikol asher asu surat Abayit utchunato umotzaav umovaav tzurotav v'chol tzurotav v'ekol chukotav v'chol tzurotav v'chol torotav hoda otam uchtov leinehem v'yishmeru ekol tzurato v'ekol chukotav v'asu otam zot torat habayit arosh hahar kol gvulo saviv saviv kodesh kadashim hine zot torat habayit.
That sure was a doozy of a verse.
Yes, and then the next section, fairly usual trope, a couple of kadmaviaz laws. But again, I wanted to point out verse 15, you have the word v'hahar-el, no yuds anywhere, and it's supposed to be the height of the altar, arba amot. And then ume ha'ariel, the text has a mistake. It goes aleph, yud aleph, but you're supposed to read it ha'ariel, yud aleph lamed. I think the yud is just a mistake altogether because the word was v'hahar-el. Don't need a yud. And then in verse 16.
Like my drunk scribe theory, huh?
Yeah. And then in verse 16, it happens again. V'ha'ariel is the way I'm going to sing it because that's the way I'm supposed to. But I don't think the yud should be there. It's v'hahar-el. They're talking about the hearth. And then there's some commentary down there on the bottom of 520. But I'll read it the way it is. Okay, 13 to 17.
At the end, at 17, you've got your fourth Gershaim of this Haftarah.
Yes.
Not so common, huh?
Also not very common, yeah. Okay, 13 to 17. Ve'ele midot hamizbeach ba'amot ama vatofach v'chekama ve'amarochav ugvulach el sfatach saviv zeret ha'echad v'ze gav hamizbeach umechek haaretz ad hazara hatachtona shtayim amot verochav ama echat umehaazara haktana ad hazara hagdola arba amot verochav haama v'hahar-el arba amot umeha-ariel ulmala hakranot arba v'ha-ariel shteim esrei orech b'shteim esrei rochav ravua el arba'at reva'av v'hazara arba. Why the number 4 is so big? I don't know. Esrei orech be'arba esrei rochav el arba'at riva'eha v'hagevul saviv otach chatzi hama v'hachek lach ama saviv uma'alotehu penot kadim.
Well, like I said, great verses for carpenters or engineers.
Yes. Then the next section, what I would talk about is the pazer on Halevi'im in verse 19. The stress, the emphasis is on that tribe, the famous tribe of Levites, and all the power, all the responsibility they had. And Mizera Tzadok, the seed of Tzadok, gets the nod, gets the star on their heads. And towards the bottom, the commentary, whoever wrote it said that Ezekiel preferred the Tzadok line of Aaron's children instead of the Itamar line. Don't know why, but that's the way it's been recorded.
Rick, I noticed an interesting, maybe not so rare phenomenon on verse 20. You know how I love those kadma va'azlaz?
Yes.
And you've got one
all on one word. Yeah, that's not that common. And so it's and take, right? You shall take.
Right.
So it was a big I'm picturing it was a big ceremonial thing at that moment.
Oh yeah,
go ahead.
This is a description of what they're supposed to do with the altar.
To do with the blood. Yeah.
Consecrate it for 7 straight days before they go on to use it regularly.
Right. Very very dramatic, messing with blood of things, everybody watching, the priests are with their musicians, they're all accompanying whatever the high priest was doing. Spectacle, you know?
Well, it was one of Ezekiel's visions here.
Yes. Okay, and the directionality in verse 10 it was, in verse 18, Vayomer Eli, he said to me, so the word comes on from on high down to us mortals, da 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 da, the direction of the trope is from heaven to earth, if you want. Ready?
All set. Take it away, Rick.
Vayomer Eli ben Adam ko amar Adonai Elohim. You can tell it's Elohim because of the vowels there. Ele Yativ Chukot HaMizbeach. These are important. Beyom Heasoto La'alot Alav Ola V'lizrok Alav Dam V'natata El HaKohanim Aleviim Asher Hem Mizera Tzadok Akrovim Elai Neum Adonai Elohim L'shareteni Par Ben Bakar Lechatat V'lakachta Midamo V'natata Al Arba Karnotav Ve'el Arba Pinot Hazara Ve'el Hagvul Saviv V'chiteta Oto V'chipartahu. Yeah. Ve'lakachta, again, both trope on the same word. Et hapar hachatat usrafo b'mifkad habayit michutz lamikdash uvayom hasheni takriv sirizim tamim lechatat v'chit'u et hamizbeach kasher chit'u bapar Bechalotcha mechate takriv parben bakar tamim ve'ayil min hatzon tamim vehikravtam Lifnei Adonai, Ishlichu HaKohanim Alehem Melach, Ve'elu Otam Ola Ladonai, Shivat Yamim Taseh Seir Chatat Layom Ufar Ben Bakar Ve'ayel Min Hatzon Timimim Ya'asu Shivat Yamim Yechapru Et HaMizbeach V'tiharu Oto Umil'u Yadav. There's another scribal error there. V'chalu et hayamim v'haya v'yom hashmini v'hal'a yasu hakohanim al hamizbeach et olotechem v'et shalmechem v'ratziti echem neum Adonai Elohim.
Kol hakavod. Well done.
Thanks.
So on the 8th day, they just took it away and went on to their normal routine.
Yeah.
Well, I guess we can agree that this was a very interesting Haftarah from a trope point of view, at least.
Yeah. And the scribe.
And the scribe. Well, we hope that you all had a great Purim. And if you did drink a lot, we hope you didn't try to write any Sifrei Torah or Haftarot and make mistakes, like our scribe here. In any case, we wish you a Shabbat Shalom, and we'll see you next week.
Happy Purim coming up.